Miami's playing North Carolina Saturday. They are, in fact, going to finish the schedule, are the Hurricanes. They're not folding up shop after the disaster against Georgia Tech. I've got a weird way that I like to look at this sport. I don't like looking in the rearview mirror when I try and predict games, because that is a fool's errand, as Meemaw would say. So instead, what I try and do is acknowledge the past, but use forward-thinking, predictive mechanisms in order to try and land on winners for these games. So let me do a little what if. What if I told you the Oregon Ducks are one of two teams in the country right now that are top 10 in total offense and total defense? They're playing Washington Saturday. We'll be on the sidelines for that game. Oregon's one of those teams. Who's the other team? Top 10 in offense and defense. Who's the other team? It is the Miami Hurricanes. So let me do another little what if with you. Little mental exercise here. It shouldn't be too much of a stretch. We all know how the game ended against Georgia Tech. Let's just pretend for a second they took a knee, because really nothing about that play is going to impact this Saturday, or at least we don't think it will. So let's pretend they took a knee against Georgia Tech. They won the game close, but they got out of there. Well, they would have gotten out of there being, what were they, -5 They had 5 turnovers last week and still would have won the game. And also, they would have held Haynes King, Georgia Tech quarterback, to 10 of 22 for 77 yards and 2 picks. It would have been a close game, but how we would be talking about Miami in that scenario is, wow, they won despite all those turnovers, and even in the midst of all that near upset talk, they dominated defensively. That's how you'd be talking about him. And then you'd probably say, boy, they clean up those turnovers. They could really have a good Saturday in Chapel Hill. My point is, all that's still valid. So if you would have felt that way otherwise, what is the difference in taking a knee versus running and fumbling change about this Saturday? Not last Saturday, this Saturday. So all we did, because it played out the way it did, is we add wounded animal mode into the blender. So I got Miami with their backs against the wall, having to go on the road, and maybe it does impact this game. Maybe it just doesn't impact it in the way you think it will. They need to win on the ground. That's what Miami needs to do. I actually think what I believed they needed to do against Texas A&M, they actually will need to do here. They lead the ACC in rush yards per game. North Carolina 43rd in rush yards per game allowed. So the paper that is in front of me indicates Miami's offensive line should travel. Their ground game should travel. They should have some success here. Here's the issue. North Carolina is extremely good. I told you last week, I thought North Carolina in that spot schedule-wise should have theoretically struggled a little bit with Syracuse. They didn't. Ripped them to pieces. So I have very little doubt about North Carolina right now. There will be plays to be made against this Miami secondary. Now, they got a safety tandem in Miami that is probably going to face one of the most important tests of this weekend, regardless of where you're looking and which game you're looking at. You got Williams back there, Cam Kitchens back there, and there's a train of thought out there. There's a school of thought that North Carolina possesses the offense to light them up, to expose them. I think they possess the offensive firepower to have success against pretty much anyone. I don't know if you're going to outright expose Miami safeties. I think they're very, very good players. I actually think it's an opportunity for them as well. But Drake May's 4th in the country in pass yards per game right now. Everything about him's the real deal. Everything about this team so far has been the real deal. Here's one area where I don't think it's necessarily a weakness or a negative. I just want you to know about it. North Carolina, the offenses they've faced. So North Carolina's defense looked a lot better so far this year. The offenses they've faced, though, have been ranked 63rd, 23rd, 120, 122, and 48. Now, the offense that was ranked 23rd was, I believe, App State, and they hung 34 on North Carolina. So haven't exactly faced a murderer's row of offenses. Miami's got the 13th rated offense in the country right now. What's the mentality of that Miami team right now? This is why I have no clue who's going to win this game. I don't know what the mentality is. They could either come out with their hair on fire, determined not to let a repeat of last week happen, or they could just implode Saturday and be down 24-3 midway through the second quarter, and neither of those would surprise me. We got to land on a side here, though. Miami's 120th in the country in penalties right now. So that cannot, the turnover thing and penalties, that cannot crop up or they're done. They could be done if they play a clean game Saturday. They certainly can't afford that. I want to take a look at what the model thinks, and Colin's got on the board already what Vegas thinks. This line's at 3.5, guys. It has not been steamed. I had a couple of buddies who fancy themselves gambling experts, and they told me, ooh, I'm grabbing North Carolina while I can. That number is going to go all the way up to 7. No, it's not. No, it's not. These teams are very evenly matched. You've got home field baked in there, and if you take out home field, Vegas is probably telling you Tar Heels -1. Minus 1.5, depending on how you assignate home value there. I'm going to just go out on a limb. And I think Miami is balanced enough and can run the ball well enough to limit possessions for North Carolina and is good enough on the back end of their secondary to limit the explosive plays that they are going to give an inspired effort because of last week. And I actually think Miami's going to find a way to win this game. I can't stress enough how low a confidence this pick is. There will not be a dime of my money bet on this. It's not a Ramen Noodle Express best bet. I am ever so slightly leaning Miami here. I think it'll muddy up the ACC championship picture if it does, because even now, the odds to win the ACC championship, North Carolina's 2nd, Miami's 4th. So that was a conference loss Miami had last week. That's not one of those out-of-conference specials. They got to win this game. They still got a tough slate coming up. They got to win this game. So I'm going to take Miami to win and obviously take them to cover. And that's my follow-up. Just a deep, nervous exhale